Welcome to the Military OSINT course from Alfar. Today we will talk about network infrastructure. In this lecture we will consider how to identify connections between companies and projects, how to find owners of sites and services, and also how to find information on domains hidden from the ordinary users. To understand this topic, we need to start with basic definitions and concepts. Computers in the network are divided into two groups: server and client. The first one stores information. The client requests access to it. Let's move on to DNS and NS. To understand what DNS is, it is best to imagine an apartment building in which the address is the location of the server and the apartment number is the IP address. DNS acts as the intercom that connects the server and the IP. DNS is also called simply NS. At the same time, if the server is responsible for forwarding mail, it is called a mixed mail server. Now let's move on to the IP address. It is the unique numerical identifier of the device in the computer network. It is important to understand that one IP address can be used by quite a large number of domains and is not always linked to one domain. Now let's figure out what the SSL certificate is. It is a protocol that ensures secure communication through the domain and that the data is encrypted. In order to receive certificates, domain owners contact services like Cloudflare, obtain a certificate, and install it on their sites. The situation with certificates is the same as with IP addresses. There are free ones that are used by unrelated sites, and there are selected and paid ones that are set by a group of sites of the same owner. And finally, let's deal with FTP. It's a file transfer protocol in computer networks. Through FTP, we connect to servers and browse the contents of directories and download files. Viewing files via FTP is similar to working with folders on a computer. Sometimes we can observe a rather confusing web of interactions of IP addresses, DNS servers, certificates, but if you disassemble it into components, everything becomes more clear. Intersections are key points from which we should start. If the number of related objects is not very large, we check each one. Any company's website is what a customer sees when they visit it and want to research information, but often companies post their business information on technical sites. To find them, open the site code, go to the Network tab and see where the requests go when loading site elements. Let's go back to the SSL certificate. We already mentioned that it can be unique for a group of sites. This is exactly what we need to check. Go to certificate details, enter the website address and see the certificate number. Using the reverse search by number, we find all the sites that use it. FTP will help to find the content of servers and sites. Using requests as an example, we try to access their content. Perhaps the company administrator forgot to close access and we can look under the hood. In the internal folders, we can find the company's internal documents, and by the name of the folders, we can trace the connection with the projects. Let's go to the directories. We are interested in files and folders located in the domain. Of particular value to us are those whose access was forgotten to be closed. If we do not want to search directories manually, we reach out to services that will do it for us. Among them are pentest tools, Spiderfoot and URL scan. Let's consider each of them. The first service is pentest tools. Its main feature is to show the vulnerabilities of sites, but it also allows us to search for directories we need, which we can try to access. URL scan and Spiderfoot are functionally similar. They differ in the form of information provided. For example, Spiderfoot provides information in the form of schemes, as well as algorithms for collecting directories. When using such services, try not to rely only on the information obtained from one of them. Always try searching through others to possibly receive additional information. A rather notable part of any domain is a file called robots.txt, located after the domain name with a slash. It records directories that the owner does not want to give to search engines for indexing. But if the site owner has closed the pages for engine crawler search, this does not mean that the pages are also closed for direct link access. We go into the file and go through the directories, trying to get useful data. Let's consider the search algorithm for open directories. First, we search for directories using domain scanning services, Pentest Tools, Spiderfoot, URLscan.io. Next, we check for availability through HTTP code status, checking services to detect open pages. Finally, we analyze the available information. To check the availability of directories, check the URL manually, or, in case of large number of pages, run them through the HTTPS status or 4CO status checking services. If the number starts with 2, it is open. 3, redirected to another page. 4 or 5, closed. It is also worth paying attention to the names of the links, which may point to interesting information. For example, we were searching for data about one space company and found subdomain names, which led us to the following. We found their internal online chat, wiki system, and subdomains of possible contractors by name. If we receive a link to a file or directory, we try to go to intermediate folders. The administrator could have closed only the final files, but forgotten the intermediate ones. Also, when accessing one open file on the site, we look at its name. If we see that there is a number in the name, then we try to open files with other numbers. In this example, we can see what information can be found in open directories. We found the company's website, looked through the directories and found an open file in PDF format. It turned out to be an invoice issued by the company to its client. By iterating through the numbers in the invoice titles, we were able to get a list of all the customers and the company's estimated revenue. An open file in PDF format indexed by a search engine was found on the domain of an Iranian legal company. When switching to the intermediate folder, it turned out to be an open as well. This way, it was possible to gain access to all saved documents, in particular court decisions, which the company was working with for several years. One of the most important things when analyzing company domain is WHOIS information. It's like a person's passport, only for the domain. It includes such information as name of the owner, mail, address, phone number, etc. However, it is worth remembering that the information in the WHOIS may be false or hidden by the privacy settings at the request of the site owner. To view the WHOIS information of any domain, we use such services as Domain Tools, Domain Big Data, as well as a service with not a such original name, WHOIS. There are quite a lot of similar services, and it is important not to stop when you have obtained information from only one of them. Let's see what the first one looks like. We see that the information about the registrar's name, mail, phone and address is hidden by privacy settings. In some cases, information about the site registrant is open. Here we consider another illustration of open WHOIS records on the example of the WHOIS.com service. Another useful thing about WHOIS information is historical data. Through them, we can trace how the information in the passport has changed. The owner could have hidden the information, but perhaps it was not done immediately after registration, and some of the services saved the initial data. We will use the Microsoft Defender Threat Intelligence Service, formerly known as RiskIQ. You can also search for various technical data on the sites through this service, but for now, let's focus on historical data on WHOIS. We can see the changes by selecting the WHOIS records by date. In the oldest record, we see the first owner of the site. For sites in the RU domain, we use WHOIS History RU, which allows you to view historical information only for such domains. Using the reverse search method for the name of the legal entity Federal News Agency, owned by Yevgeny Prigozhin, and the selection of various transliterations of the name, a media network was discovered, used to promote its own narratives and influence American society. Now let's move on to analytics trackers. Analytics trackers are used to measure traffic and activity on any site. The most common trackers are provided by Google and Yandex. There are also analytics trackers from social networks, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Each service has a unique analytics code format. For example, in Google, the format is UA- and numerical code. To search, you need to open the site code through the search and enter UA-. If it is available, we will be able to see the Google Analytics code. Next, we do a backward search for this code and find other sites that use it. You can use services like Nerdy Data and BuildWith to find the code. Using the phone number of Prigozhin's daughter, it was established that she probably manages the Trezini Palace Hotel. This part of business was previously unknown. The connection was confirmed with the help of detected common analytics tracker on the websites of the hotel and restaurants of the entrepreneur. The Ukrainian network of educational institutions has announced its exit from the Russian market. Russian ex-partners allegedly manage the local business in full, and all connections with the Ukrainian head office have been terminated. However, already after the start of the full-scale invasion and formal separation, the analytics tracker, which had been on the Ukrainian site for 2 years before that, began to be used on Russian sites. Another way to search for information is through DNS and IP address. Services that allow you to view this information include Microsoft Defender Threat Intelligence and MyIPMS. We pay attention to how many domains use only DNS and IP address. If there are more than 100 such sites, then most likely they are common and you don't have to waste time analyzing each site. If it is less than 100, you can analyze the domains in more detail. Obtaining a license to work in Ukraine by the Russian bookmaker WHOIS has received a great response. The company tried to establish work under other brands. However, the new site had the same IP address as other sites in the WHOIS network. The following topic in our lecture is pentest. Let's start with the definition. Pentest is testing for unauthorized access, data leakage, and the presence of bottlenecks in the protection of the site, program, or application. Vulnerabilities are mostly caused by the human factor. First of all, it is necessary to understand the terminology. The first is what this domain consists of. Let's consider example.com as an illustration. The first level domain is com, the second level domain is example, the third level domain is everything before example. Next comes the protocol, HTTP or HTTPS. Constituent parts of domains are also directories, folders or files at the root of the site. Subdomains, part of the domain above the second level. Service pages and separate sections of the site are usually placed on them. FTP is a file transfer protocol in computer networks. Through FTP, they connect to protocol servers and browse the contents of directories, download files from or to the server. A port is a network resource in the form of a number that defines the destination of incoming and outgoing information to a domain. Therefore, we use the following algorithm to search and analyze subdomains. Find a list of subdomains through Microsoft Defender, Pentest Tools, and Security Trail services. Check the list through HTTP code checking services, whether subdomains are open. Check out standardized subdomains, Jira, Trello, GitLab, Tableau, and Slack. And check pages with passwords. We've already worked with the first and second points of this algorithm, so let's move on to the third one. In the architecture of the site, standardized subdomains, SMTP, or mail are often used as postal subdomains. Dev and QA are used for developers and testers. Corp for corporate portal. Wiki is the knowledge base of the company. Event is a calendar of events. Company accounts in third-party services can also function as subdomains. Okta, Jira, GitLab, Git, Slack, and Tableau. We check the availability of those open subdomains. Ports are a separate source of information. To scan open ports, we use the following services: Hide My Name, Pentest Tools, and Sensis. We look at the port assignment. For example, 25 is sending mail, 110 is receiving mail, 21 is FTP. If we see that one of the ports is open, we try to enter. You can also check for open ports using the web service shodan.io. It may happen sometimes in the code of the site or directory that the developer forgets to delete confidential data, for example, logins and passwords. As an example, we can see that in the code of one of the state websites of Ukraine, it was possible to find the login and password in open access. You have probably seen the statistic of the most common user passwords. The top rankings are usually QWERTY, QWERTY123, and 1234567, and etc. It is possible that the administrator of the site, which is the object of our study, has set a standard or simple password, so it will not be an extra work to use password selection software, for example, Hashcat. This service sorts through login and password pairs based on the predefined dictionary. Let's consider another source of information, standard files in the root of the site. The administrator can make a backup copy of the entire site, call it a standard name, and place it on the root of the site. For example, common names of backup archives are domain.zip and domain.targz. Now, other standard files. The first is the files of the Git system, which controls version of the certain software. In this example, we can see the standard type of files that are created there. Other example of a list of files that are usually created are robot.txt, sitemap.xml, ads.txt, and security.txt. Robots, as we mentioned earlier, are files and folders that are closed for indexing by various search engines. A sitemap is a list of links for an entire website. Ads, advertising campaigns are listed. Security, the contact information of the security staff. These files are not always on the domain, and only in special cases access to them is left open. Nevertheless, it is worth trying to visit them. Let's move on to the specialized software, Kali Linux, in which about 600 programs are already pre-installed for checking all vulnerabilities, open directories, subdomains, password selection, etc. The functionality can also be expanded by adding other programs from GitHub. Let's consider several examples of installed software that will help us in collecting information. Nmap is an IP network scanner. We use it to search for open ports. The Harvester collects information on the subject from open sources, mail, job boards, social media profiles, subdomains, and etc. H8Mail searches for passwords in previously included databases by mail. Credover checks whether the given pair of login and password is suitable for accounts on 15 services. Sherlock checks social media accounts by a known nickname. Spiderfoot is a collection of technical information, accepts domain, IP, or mail at the entrance. It's an analog of the web version of Spiderfoot. Fierce is a scanner for finding IPs and hosts. The domain is necessary at the input. Raccoon is a site scanner that structures the found data by folders, subdomains, internal links, and files. Photon is a scanner for finding internal links and hashes. Write the target domain in quotes and with the prefix HTTP or HTTPS. The last one, Nessus, is the vulnerability scanner. Shows the name of the vulnerability, its severity, and its exploitability.